Hello, welcome back to Bookbeat and the Spenser series. Today we're looking at number 8. It's called A Savage Place. And I don't know about you, but I think that's a kind of a really interesting title. Um, where is this savage place that Robert B. Parker is writing about? Well, it happens to be in Hollywood, LA. So let's get going. Yeah. Well, first, as usual, let me tell you who some of the key players are in this story. As usual, we've got our main man, Spenser, and then we've got a woman named Candy Sloan. Candy Sloan. She is an investigative reporter for a TV station in the Los Angeles area. And she is actually introduced to Spenser through Rachel Wallace. You'll remember looking for Rachel Wallace in one of our previous stories. Rachel Wallace was being interviewed by Candy Sloan, and Candy Sloan mentions to her that she had been receiving some threats. We'll get to those in a second. And then, of course, Rachel Wallace said, I have someone who I can introduce. And so she did, and Candy Sloan calls Spenser long distance, and Spenser decides to take the job, although he is very reluctant. Well, who else do we have in here? Susan, just a little. She's not actually in the story that much, but she's talked about a lot, and she's in Spenser's mind a lot. So I think we have to consider her one of the characters in the story. We meet in a Los Angeles police lieutenant named Samuelson. And Samuelson will show up in some future Spenser stories as well. Not as a main character, but he's a good guy who, in one sense, respects Spenser, in another sense, thinks he's a pain in the ass, which he always is. So we've got Samuelson. Then we got a short, tough guy, a little bit comical, who ends up getting killed. A guy named Rafferty, who is actually a good friend of Candy's. He thinks of himself as her boyfriend. She doesn't think of him like that, but he's super handsome, super strong, super tough, but he's really, really short. He's not quite what we used to call a midget, but he's short, really short. And then we have some savage bad guys. We've got a guy named Franco and his sidekick Bubba. These are the guys that are, hired. They're tough guys. But the real bad guys in the story are executives, company executives, executives in the movie business. And we've got a guy named Felton and a guy named Hammond. Yeah, so this makes up for most of who we're going to meet in the story. Like I said, this story takes place 99.9% in LA and Hollywood. And it's interesting. I talk about it a little bit later, but one of the things that surprised me is how much he got into describing Hollywood. It seems like he really likes the place. So here we are in Hollywood. So what is this story about then? Well, like I said, Candy Sloan's an investigative reporter, and she has been threatened after uncovering a possible connection between the mob and a movie studio. So she's starting to dig. As she starts to dig, the bad guys find out what she's up to, and so start threatening her in different ways. And Spenser is called in to protect her. That's basically what he's doing. He's a bodyguard, which is a little bit different from what he usually does, right? He's usually investigating something, but in this story, it's Candy Sloan who's doing the investigating, and he's just there to make sure that she is free to investigate. But as the story goes on, he does get involved a little bit in the investigation part of it all, just because he has so much experience that he's able to help her and give her a lot of advice about how to think about things that show up, evidence, clues, and maybe what she should do next. Also, he tends to not be able to keep his mouth shut when she's interviewing people who are giving her a hard time, and that's in one sense comical. It's just the Spenser we know, who doesn't respect anyone, especially blowhards and people who think highly of themselves. Spenser basically can't stand that and tends to jump in while Candy is doing her investigative interviewing. Okay, so what kind of action? We have a lot of action in this story. Tension building scenes are some of the best, actually. We've got a scene near the beginning with this short, tough guy, Rafferty, who wants to show Spenser how tough he is. And Spenser finally gets sick of it and picks the guy up and holds him over his head in the air. And Rafferty says, okay, I got it. Yeah, you're right. You can take me. We meet Hammond. We meet Brewster at their office. And Felton, all of these guys near the kind of beginning of the story where Candy goes there to confront them. And at first it's like, oh, hi, Miss Sloan, I'm your biggest fan. And then, but as she starts pushing and digging, they become indignant. And then all of them basically end up kicking her out of their offices. And these are pretty tense scenes. Then Spenser and Candy are riding around the city in a car, and they're being followed. And so Spenser gets her to pull into a farmer's market. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember exactly. But here's where we meet the two bad guys, Franco and Bubba, for the first time. Pretty nice scene. And one of the really good scenes is at Felton's house. There's a shootout at Felton's house that is really well done. We meet again Franco and Bubba. And then, there's a really savage scene at in the middle of a thunder and lightning rainstorm out near some oil rigs, where Candy has gone with one of the bad guys, and Spenser is in a panic trying to find her and can't find her, and he hears some gunshots, and I'm not going to tell you what he finds, but that's a really very well done scene. And the final action scene is when Spenser gets so angry and so upset that he takes some hostages at Felton's office. And it's one of the tensest and most interesting scenes, not only in this book, but I think in the entire series. Yeah. Okay, so any surprises here? Yes. So, um, Spencer sleeps with Candy Sloan, and probably most of us are half surprised and half disappointed. But you know what's interesting? I mean, Robert B. Parker is the guy writing the book, and this is what he wants us to feel about Spencer. He wants us to show us who Spencer is. He wants us to understand what the relationship maybe is between Spencer and Susan still at this place, at this time in their relationship. Spencer doesn't feel like he's cheating until she asks him to move in with her for a few weeks. And it's at that point he kind of explains, well, just making love is okay, but moving in, that's a little bit different. That's more like a commitment. Susan wouldn't understand that, although she would understand me sleeping with you. The interesting thing, surprising thing to me here was in previous books, Spencer had the opportunity to sleep with other women, but did not take up on their offers. Here he does. He's kind of seduced. I think he's lonely. He's very lonely, and again, no one's saying that's a good reason, but he goes ahead and he does it. He loves Hollywood. He really goes out of his way to describe the nice parts of Hollywood. He goes jogging there, and we can just tell that he really, really likes the place. Yeah. The other interesting thing here is the character of Candy Sloan. Like, okay, she's this investigative reporter, but she needs Spencer to protect her. Yeah, I don't know. A few times she says, no, I want to finish this. I want to carry it through to the end. So I need you to be here to protect me. Again, she's trying to say, I'm a woman and I'm at a disadvantage, and I want to show them that I can do it. Yet she can't do it on her own without Spencer. Not only that, but she goes out of her way to get things that she wants through sex. And this is kind of surprising too. And it kind of surprises Spencer as well. Yeah. So those were some of the more surprising things in this story. Repeats. Yeah, again, Spencer's commitment to Susan, kind of. The loneliness he feels for her. We see this a lot in the first few books of the series, and actually he always misses her when he's away. Another repeat, same thing that has happened in other books. Guess what? He's kind of fired by her studio, and so she can't pay him anymore, but he decides to stick it out. He's going to work there. He stays another few days or another week, something like that, but he's not being paid. This is, how many times have we seen this in a Spenser book? Lots of locale description. He really goes out of his way. He's done that in other stories too, right? Like the Judas goat in Europe. He really goes out of his way to describe the locale. Some other repeats, the kind of grudging respect that he receives from local police. It's always the guys like he's got to work with respect him. They know how tough he is, how honest he is, while their bosses, in this story, Samuelson's boss calls Spencer Bush League and a hot dog. Yeah, he kind of is in some ways. He cuts corners, he breaks rules. But he gets the job done in the end, doesn't he? Other stuff, yeah, his glibness with the elite, his very dry, mocking sense of humor, sex, baseball. All of these are repeats and are things about Spenser that we love. So, yeah, let me read to you then a few of my favorite quotes from the story, a few of my favorite lines. Okay, this is near the beginning. Spenser gets a phone call from Rachel Wallace, and then right after that, a phone call from Candy Sloan. The phone rang. I said, "Hello." "Mr. Spenser?" "Yes." "This is Candy Sloan. Rachel Wallace spoke of you," I said. "Oh, good. Then you know the situation." "Only very generally," I said. "Rachel said you'd give me details." "Oh, God, over the phone?" "I hate to talk about it. How about I make up a set of circumstances and you tell me if I'm getting hot or cold?" "Excuse me?" "Oh, you're being ironic. Rachel warned me that you would be." "Ironic," I said. "Well, of course you'll need to know things. I can give you details when you get out here, but essentially the situation is this. I'm a reporter for KNBS TV here in Los Angeles. We're doing an investigative series on labor racketeering in the film business, and I came across pretty solid evidence that production companies were paying off labor union figures to ensure a trouble-free shooting schedule." I said, "Uh-huh." "When we started digging a little deeper, I got a threatening call. And recently, when I've gotten off work, the same car, a maroon Pontiac Firebird with mag wheels, has been following me home." "What was your pretty solid evidence?" "It's followed me 3 nights in a row." "No, I mean of payola in the movies." "Oh, eyewitness." "And what deeper digging did you do?" We began questioning other people in the business." "Any documentary evidence? Like checks, photographs, that sort of thing?" "Yes, stuff that couldn't be threatened or bought off." "Not yet." I had the phone tucked into the hollow of my shoulder and my hands in my hip pockets. While I talked, I looked out the window. I said, "Uh-huh." "So," Candy Sloan said, this TV station has agreed to hire someone to help me with this, to act as a bodyguard and help with the investigation." "Why not someone out there?" I took my left hand out of my pocket and looked at my watch. 4:46. I was going to be late for Susan if I didn't close this off. We couldn't be sure they would be reliable, and by coincidence I had recently interviewed Rachel Wallace, and she spoke at length about her kidnapping and how you found her. She mentioned how I lost her in the first place. She said that was her fault. Will you come out here? $200 a day in expenses. That will be fine. The station will pay. And you gotta promise to show me a movie star. Spenser always with a line. He can't resist it, can he? He's always got to have the last word, the last laugh, something funny. And yeah, some people, he thinks it's funny. Not everyone else does. Okay. So he goes out there and he meets her, and then he's in the car and they're talking. And Candy Sloan is talking. She says, "The thing is," Candy said, "that you need to understand that I'm in charge of the investigation. It's my story. I want to play it out." "Sure," I said. "That doesn't bother you?" "No." "Do you think I'm too aggressive and pushy?" "Yeah. You don't need to be, but you don't know that. No harm in it." "I'm in a tough business," she said. "I've learned to be tough." It frightens some men. "I'll be okay," I said. "Good," she said. "Is there anything you're dying to get off your chest?" "Well," I said, "while it is true that I can leap tall buildings at a single bound, and while in fact I am more powerful than a locomotive, it is not true that I am faster than a speeding bullet. If I'm going to protect you, we have to weigh risk and gain quite often." She nodded. "It's disappointing, though," she said. "What is?" "That you're not faster than a speeding bullet." "Think how I feel," I said. We swung into the entrance of the Beverly Hillcrest. "Take a shower," she said. "Have a drink. Dinner in the room. Go get rid of jet lag. Have a night's rest. I'll pick you up at 8:30 tomorrow morning and you start working." "You'll be okay tonight?" I said. "I was all right last night." I got out. A servant took my suitcase. Everyone else watched Candy Sloan drive away. The folks at the Hillcrest didn't seem too much more laid back than I was. So that night, Candy Sloan is actually grabbed and beaten. So she wasn't safe. And Spenser should have been with her, but he wasn't there. And so he realizes, yeah, these guys are in earnest. Well, this guy, Rafferty, picks him up. Rafferty's kind of an interesting guy. Rafferty was where he said he'd be. He was standing on the driver's side with the door partially open, one foot in the car. I got into the Mazda and he slipped into his side, snapped it into gear, spun the car around in the driveway and rammed it out of the driveway and onto Beverly Drive at a considerable rate. "What happened?" I said. "She got beat up." "Is she all right?" "What do you mean, is she all right?" he said. "You ever seen anybody beat up?" "How badly is she hurt?" I said. "She'll recover." "Who beat her up?" "Ask her." Yeah, so that's the short guy. He says, without looking at me, he said, "Don't fuck around with me, Jack. I've handled bigger guys than you." "And weren't they surprised?" I said. We turned off Donnie just below Sunset onto Weatherly Drive. Sorry, I don't know these street names. "She wants to see you, so she'll see you," Rafferty said. "But any time after that, you want to try me out, wise guy? Why, start right in." I didn't seem to have him intimidated. There's a lot of scenes like this where this guy Rafferty's trying to show, Spenser how tough he is. Yeah, well, this is called A Savage Place, and there's a lot of savage things that happen in the story. I'm not going to tell you exactly what, but we looked at the Who's. Yeah, mainly Candy Sloan and the Wares, Hollywood, Los Angeles. Why Candy Sloan is an investigative reporter that needs some protection. Lots and lots of action. As we said, it's called A Savage Place, and there is some savage stuff going on here. Um, and Candy Sloan is a very interesting person. She manages to seduce Spenser, so that's a surprise. A lot of things up in the air there between Spenser and Susan. And Spenser is his typical funny, ironic, I don't give a shit self, but who's strong and clever and brave and funny. So I'd like to give this 8 or 9 stars. It's not as funny as some of the others, but then again, we shouldn't expect funny in a story called In a Savage Place, right? Why expect funny? Yeah, so thanks a lot. See you guys next time. Yeah, we're moving along here, and Mark Wahlberg's got that movie coming out in March, I hear. So I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to it, but I'd like to do as many of these before that. See you next time. Thanks for being with me. Take care.